For decades, global trade has been the engine of prosperity, creating immense wealth and a level of interconnectedness never seen before in human history. Nations large and small have been drawn together by the promise of mutual benefit, with goods, services, and ideas flowing freely across borders. This system was built on the free flow of goods, capital, and ideas, a web of commerce that spanned continents and lifted millions out of poverty. But today, that intricate web is beginning to fray, strained by new pressures and shifting priorities. Trade wars, escalating sanctions, and now a bold strategic move from Beijing are reshaping the global game, introducing uncertainty where there was once predictability. China, long known as the world's factory floor, is no longer content to simply supply affordable products to the rest of the world. Now, it seeks to control who gets access to its most advanced technology, setting the rules for the next era of global commerce. Starting in 2026, Chinese electric vehicle makers will need an official export license to sell their cars abroad, a move that signals a new era of state oversight and strategic control. This isn't just another layer of bureaucracy, it represents a fundamental shift in how global business is conducted, with governments now playing a much more active role in deciding who gets access to critical technologies. The era of unfettered access to Chinese innovation is over. Foreign companies and governments will now have to navigate a new landscape of restrictions and uncertainty. The global supply chain, already strained by years of disruptions, has developed a new fracture, one that could have ripple effects across industries and continents. The West once believed that integrating China into the global system would make it more open, more democratic, and more predictable. But that assumption has proven to be deeply flawed. Instead, China has used the global system to become powerful enough to challenge it, and now wields economic tools as weapons, imposing its own rules and priorities on the world stage. The world is shifting from an era of cooperation to one of intense competition, where economic rivalry is the new normal, and alliances are constantly being tested. For years, the West designed and consumed while China built and supplied. This division of labor powered the global economy, but it's now being upended. Now China wants to be the operator, the innovator, and the gatekeeper, determining not just what gets made, but who gets to benefit from its technological advances. The smooth hum of globalization is being replaced by friction, uncertainty, and conflict. Supply chains that once seemed unbreakable are now vulnerable to political decisions and strategic rivalries. What happens when the world's largest producer of critical technology decides to turn off the tap or redirect the flow? The consequences could be profound, affecting everything from the price of cars to the pace of innovation. We're about to find out as businesses, workers, and governments around the world brace for a new era of uncertainty. This is not a temporary disruption or a passing phase. It marks a turning point in the way the world does business. It's a permanent alteration of the global landscape, redrawing the map of trade, technology, and power for generations to come. The effects of this seismic shift will be felt for decades, shaping the choices of businesses, the lives of families, and the future of nations in ways we are only beginning to understand. So, what's the new Chinese regulation? In recent months, Beijing has unveiled a sweeping set of rules that could reshape the global electric vehicle market. These new policies are making waves not just in China, but across the world as governments and automakers scramble to understand what's next. Starting in 2026, any Chinese company exporting electric vehicles will be required to secure a special government license. This isn't just a formality, it's a major shift in how China manages its booming EV industry and its role as the world's largest EV exporter. Officially, the government says it's about ensuring quality and protecting the reputation of the Made in China brand. They want to guarantee that only the best vehicles represent China on the global stage. But beneath the surface, the real power lies in the criteria for approval. Beijing will favor companies with strong research and development, robust global service networks, and ambitious plans to build internationally recognized brands. This means only the most innovative and globally minded firms will get the green light. This is industrial policy on a global scale. Beijing is actively picking winners and consolidating its EV industry, shaping the future of mobility far beyond its borders. Giants like BYD, NIO, and XPeng are being positioned to dominate not just at home, but to challenge and even surpass legacy automakers in Europe and beyond. The threat for foreign competitors is no longer just about price or technology. It's about access to the world's most advanced Chinese EVs. The export license now becomes a powerful lever of geopolitical influence, giving Beijing new ways to shape global markets and relationships. The era of easily sourcing cheap, advanced Chinese EVs is coming to an end. Prices may rise, and availability could become uncertain for many countries. Now, Beijing decides who gets access to its best products, and who is left waiting, as some vehicles are approved for export while others are held back. Trade is no longer just about profit margins. For China, it's about national interest, strategic control, and shaping the future of the global automotive industry. China's economic story unfolds in 3 remarkable chapters, each more ambitious than the last. In the beginning, China was known as the world's factory, churning out everything from toys to electronics, assembling goods for Western markets at an unprecedented scale. Its factories powered global supply chains, making "Made in China" a household phrase across continents. The next chapter saw China transform into a fierce competitor, no longer content to just assemble. It began innovating, investing heavily in research and development, and building global brands that could stand toe-to-toe with established Western giants. Chinese technology and design started to make waves on the world stage. Now, China has stepped into its most powerful role yet: the global gatekeeper. With the introduction of the new EV export license, Beijing isn't just selling products anymore, it's managing who gets access to the future of transportation. This is a strategic shift, turning exports into levers of influence. By dominating the electric vehicle supply chain, from raw materials to finished cars, China now sets the terms for the world. It controls the flow of critical components, batteries, and technology that other nations depend on. As the gatekeeper, China can reward its allies with favorable deals, punish rivals by restricting access, and use its position as a powerful diplomatic tool, reshaping alliances and global strategies. National champions, China's leading companies, are given a protected path to global dominance, supported by state policy and resources. This new power is even greater than simply being the world's largest manufacturer. It's about setting the rules and controlling the flow of the future economy. China now holds the keys to the choke points of tomorrow's industries: rare earths, batteries, and advanced manufacturing. The factory floor has evolved into a control tower, overseeing not just production, but the direction of global commerce and technology. From this vantage point, Beijing is actively shaping the global landscape, influencing decisions far beyond its borders. The rules of the game are being rewritten, and China is holding the pen. Europe's automakers, Volkswagen, Renault, Stellantis, face a perfect storm. They dominated for decades, but the shift to EVs has been slow and costly. China, once a partner, is now a fierce competitor and a critical supplier. The new export license adds uncertainty. European firms depend on Chinese batteries and tech. If Beijing prioritizes its own champions or links supply to politics, European strategies collapse. Supply chains are now geopolitical vulnerabilities. Europe underestimated China's rise and overestimated its own edge. Now they must accelerate R&D, build domestic battery supply, and rethink global strategies. But time is short. The headwinds from the east are growing stronger. Europe's auto giants are sailing into uncharted waters. Their future may depend on decisions made in Beijing. Made in China once meant cheap and mass-produced. Now Beijing wants it to mean quality, innovation, and premium technology. The EV industry is the centerpiece of this transformation. Brands like NIO and BYD aren't aiming to be the cheapest, they want to be the best. The export license weeds out low-quality makers, curating a premium export portfolio. Only the best represent China abroad, preventing a race to the bottom. The government signals compete on technology, design, and brand, not just price. This is about national pride and global influence. Premium brands wield soft power, shaping tastes and commanding respect. China wants the status of Germany's automakers or Switzerland's watchmakers. The EV export policy is a step toward that goal. China is moving from the bargain bin to the luxury showroom. The West is waking up to a harsh reality. Its economic future is tied to its biggest rival. Interdependence was once seen as a strength, but China's new EV policy exposes the flaw. When one side controls the critical links, it holds the advantage. China dominates battery minerals, components, and manufacturing. Western automakers rely on Chinese inputs at every stage. This is the result of decades of strategic policy in Beijing and complacency in the West. The West outsourced its industrial base, creating a strategic vulnerability. The new export license makes this impossible to ignore. Supply chains are now geopolitical weapons. The golden threads of globalization now look like iron shackles. Western fears focused on a flood of cheap Chinese EVs. Tariffs and trade barriers were built to keep them out. But China's export license policy flips the script. The real threat is a drought, restricted access to essential high-tech products. Beijing can now use export licenses as a tool of statecraft. If a country angers China, it could lose access to the latest EVs or critical components. This is subtle, deniable economic coercion. The challenge is no longer just protecting old industries, but securing access to new ones. The fear is no longer being overwhelmed, but being left behind. The threat is technological starvation, not economic inundation. In 1957, Sputnik shocked the West into action. Today, China's EV dominance is a new Sputnik moment. The message, the West is behind. China's export license is a declaration of victory in the race for future mobility. Denial is no longer an option. The West must rebuild its industrial base. Mining, batteries, R&D. Governments and industry must collaborate for secure, resilient supply chains. This isn't protectionism, it's strategic necessity. The race is not over, but the West is no longer in the lead. China's EV power play is a challenge to be met with ambition and innovation. This is the economic space race, and the West cannot afford to lose.